Welcome back to another episode of Just Like Us.
Just like
I'm your host,
us.
Justin Bird, and this is my co-host, Leti Zita.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in.
Welcome in. Thank you guys for joining us. So today is episode 10. We're going to be discussing living with purpose.
Living with purpose.
Thank you guys again for being a part of this. So finding purpose through pain. Pain can shape us, but it doesn't define who we are. My addiction taught me to rebuild my life with purpose and direction. So I want to touch on that a little bit. Being in the addiction world, it's easy to get lost in the sauce, so to speak. And finding my purpose really, it shined after, so many years of being in the trenches, so to speak, with addiction. But luckily, I was able to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I myself am going to be the one to get myself out of this situation. I put myself in it, I'll get myself out of it. But the whole point is to be able to, turn that pain into a power, something that I can thrive off of, and not let this get me down and be something that I'm having to drag with me throughout my life. Luckily, not luckily, but I was able to, see that my worth is more than just being involved or wrapped up in addiction or substance or alcohol or anything for that matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
sure.
I feel like me having, the clarity of wanting to do better for myself is important. I'm no superhero. I'm no different than any one of you guys out there. I just found that, for me, nobody's going to, get me in that situation but me, and nobody's going to get me out of it but me. So,
Right.
it was a reflection of myself of what do I want for myself, and also what do I want from my family? What do I want from my son to see, from my lady to see? Do I want them to, look at me with like this, like in disgust, or like, I want people to look up to me and say, hey, that's an honorable person. He's honest. I want these positive things to be thought of and said about me throughout life, and even after life. I want people to say I was a good person, and that, I had good qualities about me that people cherished and liked about me. So, finding purpose through pain, I think is important, because it just gives us that sense of, of worth, even though we're going through some painful things, we can find purpose in that, and vice versa. We can find the purpose through the pain. So purpose gives us meaning and direction, and so in this episode, we're exploring how to use the struggles as a foundation for our purpose and create a life that inspires others. So let's dive into that. So turning pain into action. Prison gave me clarity. I turned all of my struggles, so to speak, into lessons, and using them to help others was like one of my key, I think, something that helped me to find purpose in the downsides of what I was going through. Because even though I was in prison, I was still able to learn things as well as teach others too. I worked out really hard, and I found that a lot of people seen what I was doing and wanted to be a part of that. And there's a lot of people that several people asked me to work out with me, and they just wouldn't show up after a couple of times. And so I found myself saying, I'm just going to do this on my own, because I find like, leaning on other people, it was letting me down. So, being in prison, there was a lot going on in such a small place, but I turned that pain into progress. I didn't let it get me down, and I kept on motivating myself by showing up for myself day after day after day. I mean, it's easy to be in a place like that and just sit and not really want to do anything, but I wanted to get out, and I wanted to be better than when I went in. And again, one of the things that I found while I was in there was I wasn't in there for the things that I got taught for. I was in there for the things that I didn't. So, being able to live with purpose and have that turning it into something of a positive, effect from coming through the prison system. It was kind of a rare thing. And I'm not saying I'm a rare thing, but it was like for me to be able to come through the mud and be able to wipe myself off. I think it's an amazing story, because not everybody can say that they've only been to prison once. It only took me one time to go there to realize I don't want to go back. And it's for several reasons, not just because I was around a bunch of guys and not because I was locked up. I mean, there were several reasons. It was scary, it was violent. It was, but also there's, the fact that it's just not somewhere for me. I want to be around people. I love people, and being in a place like that, it didn't suit me very well. It wasn't. I mean, some people are okay with it. Actually, in fact, some people I know have been to prison several times, and it's comforting. And then there's nothing against that. Me personally, I don't find it to be somewhere that I could be comfortable. I don't like it because there's so many things that you're constantly having to,
Mm.
your back's against the wall and you're having to deal with certain things. But I found purpose in that. And again, me going through the prison system, it helped me realize what I did not want for people to see in me. We all have the potential to be, these terrible things. We do. I mean, face it, all of us can be the number of terrible things you can think of. But fortunately, most of us don't turn to those things. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, we end up being who we are. And I luckily was able to go through the prison system, and I didn't have the issues that some others may have had. But and I don't find that to be lucky. I find it to be that was the way I navigated through that system, was showing up as me, even though I was in prison, and being able to be the best me I can be, even in a place that you would think would be so dark and gloomy and like violent and so heavy on, like it was toxicity in there like no other. But really, it was me being able to navigate that by being me. Because one of the things I found to be super important was, as long as I'm who I am, like as long as I'm myself, which I have a lot of pride, but I'm also very humble. And so going through the system, it was like it wasn't really difficult to go through there being myself. I wasn't causing no problems. I wasn't trying to fight anybody. I wasn't into, I didn't have any drug addictions in there. I wasn't gambling. There wasn't, I wasn't buying things and not paying people back. So I went through there and I stayed to myself. I didn't really talk to many people, and I was able to kind of isolate myself if I wanted. I didn't really have to talk to people. I worked out. I stayed focused on what I was doing, and my purpose being in there was to figure out what I was in there for. And when I found out why I was actually in there, I started realizing, okay, that's a mindset. I'm in here and I'm able to get out of here with a whole lot more than I came in. And that's probably not easy for a lot of people to understand that. I think that prison was probably one of the best. It was a part of my life that I found to be very helpful, and I allowed that to be something that was helpful. So again, finding purpose through pain is to me, it's important, because I can look back and say, I've had a lot of pivotal moments and times in my life where I could have drowned, or I could have, just went down this alley of darkness, and I stayed toward the light. I stayed being who I am. And that's just me. I feel like I'm a beacon. But again, finding our purpose through pain, anyone can do this. We all can be a part of our own success. So I think it's important to just reflect on what it is that we have inside us as a light. We can all go, like I said, go down that dark alley, but I think that it's important for me as a person to be that beacon, so I can continue shining that light for people. That again, I'll find the light in even the darkest situations. I will. I just will. That's just how I am, and I love that about me. So on that note, is there anything that you want to add to that section of this?
I mean, I think a lot of what you said is, really, really good. For me, it was the opposite. I had a lot of darkness, but I kept exposing it, to the light. And sometimes the dark would outweigh the light. And, I had to fight, and it was a struggle, and was wanting to find purpose and power. But, I had a lot of shame and guilt, and, that type of stuff to work through. And you know, I was turning inward, like on myself, meaning, I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't have any self worth. I had like a fake confidence. I dressed up, I, got great jobs. That's how I kept myself going, right? Was by achieving and achieving and achieving and doing better and better and better. But I just didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like this was my purpose. I didn't know what it was. But, I had to go through a lot of dark moments in my life to, finally get here. This is something, being on this podcast, this is something that, Justin and I talked about, a few years back.
Oh yeah, coming up on almost 6 years ago.
No, and this was while we were still, knee deep in our addiction, talking about one day, this is not going to be us. One day we're not going to be doing this anymore. And we're going to talk to a lot of people about it.
Yeah.
you know, um, everybody has at some point struggled with heartbreak. Everybody's struggled with disappointment. And, this is why I feel like it's so important to tune into yourself first. Eyes on your own paper. That's a saying I came up with, right? It's eyes on your own paper, because once you take your eyes off of yourself and you start to look at what other people are doing, again, it can make you feel like, well, what is my purpose? Well, I want it to be that, or why isn't it that? You got to go within. I realized that I was the problem, but I am also the solution. And God has played a big part in that for me. Reading the Bible and praying and seeking His guidance. Like, what does He want me to do? I want to be in alignment with what I came here to do on this earth.
Mm.
And I love people. I'm empathic. I love connecting with people, but I also like my time by myself too, because I'm really getting to know myself and I'm loving my own company.
Mm.
I love
That's important.
who I am.
Right.
Um, I love my thoughts, and when I don't, I change it. That's the beauty of living with purpose too. I think as you get to change your mindset about what you think others want you to be living. That's how I lived. It was just tell me what to do and I'll do it. You know, and not feeling fulfilled.
Mm.
That's what we want. We want to feel fulfilled, like we're making an impact. Everybody wants to feel like they belong to something,
Right.
right? But I had to belong to myself first and not look to, other people to fulfill me, right? It should be when you're fulfilled, you come together and there's this alignment. You're both walking in your purpose, or a group of you is walking in your purpose, right?
Right.
We
Yeah.
all need each other.
Yeah.
I need
Exactly.
you as
Yep.
much as you need me.
Right.
You
Yeah.
help me find my purpose,
Yeah.
and vice versa,
Right. Yeah. So
right?
purpose is about showing up daily too. And
Daily.
for me, it's fatherhood. It's being present and teaching my son through my actions, what he sees through
Mm,
me. And I feel like that's super important because I mean, he sees everything that I do, and I know that he's watching and mimicking me, whether it be good or bad or imperfect, or I see him, and I'm a proud father
mm,
because like when we see him implement the things that we teach him, simple things of like manners, yeses, pleases. I'm like, I see how he is here. Like, I don't have to tell him to say thank you anymore. I don't have to teach him to have manners. It's just automatic, and I
yeah.
love seeing that because he's 6 years old, and I asked him the other day. I said, "You're like this at school, right?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, of course I am, Dad." And it made me just feel good, like
Yeah.
like a mentor sees a mentee, and you just it's what it is. He's my little
Mm,
mentee, and seeing him
mm.
implementing the things that
You're
that I'm
teaching
showing
him.
him,
Yeah.
yeah, and he picks up fast, and it's really cool to see because I mean it feels good to have this little guy seeing what I'm doing, and he says things that like
Mm.
phrases like that we say, like we're in here, we're in an office, and we're saying things, and he's like reciting things that we're saying with our community or with
Mm.
each other that we're doing like for our work and business, and I'm like, how he's listening, he's constantly listening. So
Always.
and it's good to make an impact on him in a positive way, and I feel like that's very purposeful. I
Yeah.
enjoy seeing him thrive and be able to grow in a sense of I always said that I would like for my children to have what we didn't have, and
Mm.
most of those parents think that but oftentimes I find myself doing the exact same things that my parents did. Of course, we've all said that too, like, because I said so. I said that the other day, actually. I did.
Mm.
I
I
really
said
told
it
him
a
that. I
couple
said,
of
yeah.
times this
And that was
week, and
like a
I was
pet
like,
peeve,
oh,
huge pet peeve of mine when I was growing up because I asked my mom, I said, why not? Because I said so. And it was like, it just irked me. And I said, I'm not going to ever do that with my kids. And here I am, my mom's coming out in me. I mean,
mm,
and it wasn't bad. It reminded me like, we're just a twin from our dad with a twin of our
mm,
mom. I mean, we're twins of them mixed together. And it was very interesting to think of my mom in that sense of like, what we don't want to be like, but in fact, I miss my mom. I
oh,
wish I could have an argument with her. I wish I could have one of them,
yeah.
the worst case scenario times with her. I wish I could just have one of those. But it's what would you call it? A bliss. What is it? a you know, it's bittersweet.
Bittersweet.
Yes,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Okay. I was like,
Yes, bittersweet.
which
So
one is it?
yeah,
Yeah.
but
It
again, you know,
is. Yeah.
being showing up for myself is
Mm.
showing up for my family, showing up for my son, and I think living with living with purpose isn't just for me.
Mm.
It inspires my family too. You
Yeah.
know, my
Sure.
audience and the people around me who would like to do the same. And I hope that me showing up for myself is impactful to my audience, to the people who I'm around as well, because I think that it's important to have others that can learn from what I'm doing in a positive way. I'm not out here teaching negative stuff. I'm not out here, you know, violent or you know,
Mm.
talking negative. Or I'm over here, you know, hoping that we can all start loving on each other as if we
Yeah.
were the last people in the world. Because I
Yeah.
think there's a lack of that in the world right now. I think that the things that are perceived to be bad tend to be good, and vice versa.
Mm.
And I want to keep on promoting good things. I want to say, you know, what I mean, get up, you know, get up. If you fall down, make sure that you get up. You know, we
Yeah.
all have struggles, but you know, through our pain we can find purpose. And it's really, it's a mindset, it's a mental thing that we all have within us, that God gave us this free will to be able to do what we want. We can go down and feel pity for
Mm.
ourselves, we can feel bad for ourselves, but the whole
Can.
point is to get up. And if you're going through some painful things, you know, you reach out, find people who want to see you doing good. And if that's something that feels like it's out of touch, reach out even further, find a group, find people that, you know, want to help you. That
Yeah.
there are many things out there, many people. And unfortunately, there's so many things in the world. It's hard to really know who to trust. But you know, you got to keep on digging. Don't
That's,
stop.
I was gonna say, you gotta, seek, ask, and knock. The very fact that you're desiring it, that answer is gonna come to you, right? If you just keep, pursuing it and keep knocking and keep asking, it will come to you. And then you have the opportunity, right, to turn your purpose into power. We don't have to stay stuck.
Right.
Again, it's like what we talked about. It's a mindset, shifting your mindset. Like, find one positive thing, one thing that's going to move you towards your purpose. Sit with yourself, journal, color, sing, dance. Just, get out of your head and kind of let it naturally start to, come up.
Right.
And try whatever it is you want to try, and see how that feels to you. Does it light you up? Are you kind of like, it's not really my thing, and then just keep going towards those things that fill you with power, because chances are you're headed straight for your purpose,
Mm.
And do it scared. I think pursuing your purpose, afraid, because we get into worrying about, oh my God, what are other people going to think? I've spent my whole life worrying about what other people are going to think. I'm worrying about what I think this time around. I want to know what Letty thinks, right? And that doesn't mean I'm going to, I want to hurt like my family, or, you know what I mean? But I want to do what feels right to me on the inside. I've tried a lot of different things. I've searched high and low, and I came back to, I came back to God, asking and seeking and knocking. And here we are, here we are today, and talking to my partner about it, and journaling about it, and really allowing myself to let my imagination run wild. Like, if I could do anything and I didn't have to worry about what other people thought, what things would I do? And simple little things. Like, when I'm outside, and I just need to clear my head, I go to, I've been to a lot of parks around here. Pop in my AirPods and turn on the music and dance. And was I afraid to do that? Yes, but it felt so good to do it. I just started to do the opposite of what I was afraid of, and if we don't keep up on that practice, those fears can start to creep back in and keep you away from your purpose. And you want to go towards your purpose,
Mm.
right?
Right.
So, um,
How is pursuing your purpose? It influenced the way you show up for others.
the how has my
How is pursuing your
my
purpose,
purpose
yes, influenced the way you show
that
up for
I show
others?
up for
Yeah.
others? because I'm happier. I feel alive. I feel alive. Um, when I'm doing the things I love, which is talking to people. I love dancing. I love singing. I love, reading. I love journaling. Um, I like to be out in nature, and for me, that I find people to talk to. I find people, come up to me and talk to
Me
me,
too.
and I enjoy that. I
Yeah.
do. And then there are times that I just want to, I'm in a place where yes, I'm out and about, but I want that moment for myself, right? There are some things that I want just for me too, and that's okay. You don't have to just show up as your authentic self every single day. You don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. That's, I did that for so many, many years. I showed up the way that I thought other people wanted me to show up, even though I knew inside it didn't align. It wasn't aligning with who I was or what I felt my purpose was. But it was a process and I went through it and now I know what not to do.
Mm,
So because of that and because of all the pain and the hurt that caused me, I've now turned it into power. And I've had a lot of people ask me, um, how do you do this? How do you do that? What do you do here? When this happens, what do you do? And I'm happy to share that. And so is Justin. I mean, we have definitely like mentored each other sometimes without the other even knowing it,
right.
and
Right.
that's been very helpful for me to process to process through some of my own pain and turn that into power.
Right.
And so, I would ask you, Justin, um, for you to, what does living with purpose mean to you, and how do you practice that every day?
Okay. Perfect. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Okay. So, on a daily basis, I am reminded of how impactful I am as a person by just simply interacting with people.
Mm,
I make it a point to talk with several people a day, and I've been able to find my comfort zone
mm,
with people. I wouldn't want to feel uncomfortable by just going up and randomly jumping out in front of you. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do that. So I found what I feel to be most comfortable with approaching
mm,
people, and usually it's just like a nonchalant. We're passing, and again, I'm not like just going out of my way to say hello, but I am in the sense of like
mm,
we're
mm,
we're in line, and I'll just spark conversation up, and it's so fluid. I feel like
mm,
it's so easy for me to do that it comes off like extremely naturally. It's not something that I have to try to really go out of my way to do anymore. I do it so much,
mm,
and again, I work with one of the biggest companies in the world, so I'm constantly around people and constantly encountering different kinds of people, ages, colors, you name it. I come in contact with all kinds of people,
oh
but
yeah.
and I find ways to interact that are more fun, and again, sometimes people may be going through what they're going through, and I don't know, and so sometimes people just ignore me. It's very rare because again, I've been able to fine tune it, so to speak, on how I come at people or how I
Yeah.
interact with people, and I typically 9 out of 10 times I get a positive response from people. There are times where Letty's like, sometimes people don't want to be said hi to, and
Then
it
that's
really,
okay.
and it's okay because that's man, that's just how it is. Not everybody's going to want to talk to a stranger. You know what I mean? But I have been lucky enough to. Well, I wouldn't say luck. I think it's
Mm,
kind of a skill too. I'm not going to talk to somebody who's got like this mean mug on their face and it's just like look like they're potentially having a bad day. Not judging, saying that that's what happened, but excuse me. I like to interact with people, and I think that gives me purpose. That gives
mm,
me I'm an extrovert, so for me, it makes me, it lights me up in a sense to have people interact. And I was actually on the phone with one of the workers I work with, and when they realized who it was on the phone, oh hey hey, that sound in somebody's voice, the
yeah.
tone when they're like, oh who's, oh hey, and they light up. I
Mm,
enjoy that it makes me feel great when people, when you genuinely see them excited to see you, like, and I feel like I add value
Yeah.
in so many ways. And
Yeah.
again, I don't mean to seem like I'm bragging or boasting. I'm saying this is the reactions that I get from people, and so excitement shows me that these people are happy to see me. They're pleased to see me. There's something that they're gaining from either me just
Mm.
being myself, or I like to think that I do add value in one way or another. I fix stuff. That's what I do. I have a robotics degree, and I have my certification for welding and HVAC, and I
Mm.
can fix anything. Like, legitly, I can fix anything. And so a lot of times, maybe that surprise or that excitement, maybe from like, hey, you're here to fix something, but that's not, that's
Mm.
not always the case. It's probably not even the case half the time. It's
Mm.
just I have a lot of excitement, and I feel like I bring the light to a lot of things. And even if it's something that, oftentimes, I'll just interact with people, and I feel like that's kind of one of my purposes, is to just cheer people up,
Bring
even if they're
light.
not, even if
Yeah.
they're not down, even if they're having a good day. I tell people I love them so many times a
Mm.
day, and when I get one back, it's not uncommon, but it's somewhat rare to have people say I love you back, especially if they're strangers. So to me, that fuels me, that lights me up, and
Mm.
I'll say I got one, yes, because I mean it's not too uncommon, but it is,
Yeah.
it's kind of a rare thing sometimes to have people say I love you back, because again, I'm really I'm up to bat for something that, a lot of people ain't even playing ball in. So people don't want to say I love you, they don't know you, but it's just fun. It's fun because I mean I love them, and some people might think that that's just, well, if you don't just go around saying I love you to people if you don't mean it. Well, I do mean it, and I don't have to know you. I don't even have to have ever met you
Mm.
before to know that I love you, because I know what it's like to be by myself, and I know what it's like to be around a bunch of people, and I
Mm.
still love people. Ask Letty, like, legitly, I will tell almost everybody I come in contact with, you'd
Pretty
have to be
much.
there.
Yeah.
It's not like just
Yeah.
I love you. I'm not just
Yeah.
saying that. Like,
Yeah.
if the people who know me, how I am. Like, I think I'm a very approachable person. I think I have, some good energy,
Mm.
and again, I think when
Yeah.
people, they see me, that have met me before, or they've seen me or met me on occasion, that when they light up, I know that my purpose is exactly that, is just showing up for myself and being able to bring light.
Yeah, I think the way that you say "I love you," to people, and just your kindness, I mean, that reminds me so much of, how I see God today,
Uh-huh.
just that unconditional love. Those people aren't doing anything to earn your love. You're just freely giving it
Yeah.
away and telling them, "I love you," because you genuinely know, right, what it's like, to not feel loved. And
Yeah.
I do too. That's why I say it often everywhere I go. I wouldn't say it to but a lot of people, right? Like I said, and it's definitely given me a bigger heart. I mean, I have a big heart, not that I had a bigger one before.
Maybe.
But more, I should say, let me rephrase that, more open,
Mm.
right? More um loving towards myself, so therefore I can put that love out towards others. And to me, that when I see you do that, or that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of God's love, like God,
I copy.
yeah, showing his unconditional love. I didn't do anything to earn it. I've always had it. It's always been there, but it was up to me to, either respond to it, or, turn the other way and go on about my business,
Right.
and
Right.
I've done it both ways.
Right.
And, coming back to a relationship with God, and allowing him to love me when I felt so unlovable. I had so many people telling me that they loved me, but I didn't feel it for myself.
Mm. Right.
And, I started to cry out to God, reach out to him, and say, "What do you have me here for?" I'm 50 years old. I'm, on drugs. I've had some, been married once. I had some terrible relationships that didn't go so well. You know, um, just my life was a mess. Like, what could I possibly do, with all of this? This isn't where I thought at 50 that I would be,
Right.
right? I had a great paying job that I wasn't fulfilled with. you know, and I was, you know, on substance and just not living my best life. You know, I was just replaying these just terrible scenarios in my head every day about, you know, how I, you know, wasn't special. I didn't have anything that, you know, I couldn't bring any meaning or purpose to the world. I couldn't even bring it to my own life, you know, and I had to, you know, not I had to, I got to, you know, experience God's love that way. And hadn't experienced it like that in a very, very long time. And, you know, finding your purpose too is about surrendering everything that you know, thought you knew, and, you know, being open to what, you know, to what life has for you, and kind of letting it unfold instead of constantly chasing it,
Mhm.
chasing it. That's what I was doing. Well, maybe if I go here or if I go there, is my purpose under here? No. Um, you know, I found that the more time I spent with God and the more time I spent getting to know myself and what I liked, um, the closer I was getting to feeling that fulfillment, you know, just allowing it to unfold, not forcing it, but allowing it to unfold,
Right.
you know, and it's still unfolding. And but I've started, and that's the beauty of it, you know. It doesn't have to be, you know, what is it we say? 70% done is
It's
better
better than
than perfect.
100% perfect.
Because
Yeah.
if you wait to be perfect, you'll never do
You
it.
might
Had
wait
I
your whole life.
waited to have, you know, had we waited to have this all like, okay, everything's got to be
Right.
just right, and
We might
we're
not have
just
made it.
out here,
Yeah.
we
We're
might
just
not
doing
have
it. We're
done it.
actually we're doing this now because you know what is it was the new year. We had so much to gain, and there's so much to be learned from this. I
Mm,
think, and so us being up here in front of you guys, we were like, you know what, we're just instead of just thinking about it, let's just
yeah,
do it. Let's
and
just
it
go ahead
feels
and do
so
it.
good because it feels like, you know, we're walking in our purpose. Like
Yeah,
this is what we're meant to do, you
yeah,
know.
it really
We're
does.
meant to just conversate with people, you know. We do we add a lot of value to ourselves,
Yeah,
you know, to each other, and it's not always roses and rainbows, but we know that we can come together, right? No matter what. Like I know you have my back as well as I have yours, and I've
yeah,
learned to let you walk in your purpose and not feel like I'm going to shine any less. Quite the contrary. You know, I shine just as brightly, you know, and I'm not afraid to like step back when I need to. I don't have to like you know, overpower you. I have felt that way sometimes with you, but even with other people in my life, like, you know, I've got to be in competition. I've got to be better. I've got to be, we all shine. We really do. You have something to offer the world. You have a purpose.
yeah,
You know, you've had pain, you know, turn it into power
right,
for yourself and for those around you, because that's what we want. It's about connecting, and it's about community, and it's about giving back.
right,
But you've got to give to yourself
right,
first.
yes,
And sometimes, just sometimes, that means saying no to others, but also allowing them their process and to be, you know, who they are.
right, yeah,
And that's my purpose here. I am a great encourager. I uplift people, you know, and that makes me, you know, that makes me feel good,
yes,
you know. And I also like to take time to myself to uplift myself and encourage myself the way that I do so many other people. And I think it's just, you know, finding your flow and going with it, you
right,
know,
yeah,
and not having fear that other people are. So if other people are and you're not in that moment, that means you're less than. It doesn't.
right. And if I can add something to that,
Mm,
that you know, it's taking me, you know, coming through a lot and going through a
mm,
lot to see what it is that I'm good at. And what I want to say is that what she just touched on was we all have something to offer, and that is so true. And so what we're doing here is like, instead of like going and hoping to find something that,
Mm,
that I can go make money at or something, I'm actually going to step into my purpose right now with what I'm
yeah.
very good at, and that's being me. And what I mean by that is I've been through no different than anyone else, but I've been through some things that I can shed light on and be proud to say, hey, I've come out, on the other side, and I
Yeah.
feel like I have so much to be able to teach, and that people can learn from me. And I also have some learning to do myself, but I'm doing what I
Yeah.
enjoy doing, and that's simply just me showing up, sharing some of the things I've been through and adding value. And by adding value, I said it because so many people have told me, just recently even, that what you're doing is meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm gaining from, and so I'm going to continue doing that. Again, like when it comes to certain things, I won't freestyle rap to like an older lady that doesn't like rap. It doesn't make sense. Why?
Mm.
And me personally, I would rather talk,
She might like it.
maybe, but I would rather say one word to 1,000 people than 1,000 words to one person, because I
Mm.
find that there's a lot more to be had from what I'm able to give. And that's the things that I've gone through and I've been through,
Mm.
and the things that I've learned. And
Yeah.
I mean, a very encouraging person. Often I find myself, giving little tidbits of positivity to people. And I think that makes me feel good inside. I think that's
Yeah.
what helps
It
me
does.
continue to do what I'm doing, and seeing the reaction from people.
Mm.
Again, being an extrovert, it fuels me to do it even more, and finding different ways to be able to reach people. And this is another platform to do that. So by being on here and simply showing up as my true potential
Yeah.
me, is then and it adds value to myself to see other people learning from it. So
Mm.
I love seeing that, and I think this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm stepping into my purpose and my light, and I enjoy
Mm.
it. And the more we do it, the better we'll get, and the better we'll get, the better results we'll have. And I think,
Yeah.
showing up for you guys, showing up for ourselves, it's very meaningful. This purpose that I have is
Absolutely.
to be
Yeah.
myself, and to be even more comfortable being myself in front of people, because I don't
Mm.
have issues being myself in front of people, unless there's something that was to stand in the way and say, hey, you're doing something wrong.
Mm.
Even then, like, I've learned to navigate in life, to, if it's something that's not like, resonating with my spirit, with what I'm doing, it's okay for me to not be around it. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. I'm okay with just going the other way, because that's just where I'm at right now. Things aren't
Yeah.
like, if they're not, hurting me, I can go toward them. But if there's something that's going to harm me, I'm just going to go the other way,
Mm.
and I can sense these things by being able to see certain key factors in people and things that, I feel like my picker's good now. Like my friends that I choose to be my friends, I choose them. They don't choose me anymore. As a
Mm.
kid, it was like, it was a different story. I felt like, my friends kind of like adopted me, and I don't want that feeling. I want to know that I am in control of who I have
Yeah.
around me.
We have
And if
more power than, we give ourselves
Yeah, absolutely. And I
credit
want to
for.
pour out of a full cup. And
Mm.
by doing this, I'm able to do this because I have so much inside of me that I have to offer, that's positive. Like any of you guys who know me, you guys know I'm upbeat, and I bring the light. I really am. I'm a very, very positive
Yeah.
person. And sometimes people, my brother Nathan told me one time, he said, I don't go out dancing with you anymore to the clubs. I mean, this is a long time ago, but he said, because people just like the dudes be dogging you. Like people just be
Mm.
hating on you. And I'm like, for what?
Mm.
And I mean, it's because how I dress and how I move, and like I'm serious. I've been telling people I love them, strangers and all, for many, many years. And I know that some of the people who are watching this that know me, they can attest to that too. I've been saying this since I was a kid, since I was young. I've been
Mm.
saying I love you to strangers for
Yeah.
years. And I'm like that even when I go out, even when I go out, and of course, when I'm out in public, I do it. But my brother said one time, he said, man, I'm not going out with you no more. People seem like they don't like that you have this light, with you. But I enjoy who I am. So, make sure that we're stepping into our purpose and having,
Yeah.
a full cup to be able to pour into others. So thank you guys for being a part of
Thank
this.
you
Is there
so
anything else
much.
you want to add?
I just I just want to encourage all of you, to get explorative about yourself and what it is, like really sit down and think, about what it is that makes you happy. Even if you have to go back a ways, start somewhere, you know, go back to the beginning, to when you were little. What were things that you daydreamed about? What did you imagine? You can bring that to life today.
All right.
You know, You really can. We have more power than we give ourselves credit for. And, I think just be curious, s- go out and look at the world in a different way than you normally look at. I challenge you to do that. Actually stop and, smell the roses, look at how nature works, watch the birds, watch the bees, you know, see how they interact. It's amazing. You're amazing. Amazing. You're going to learn, so much about yourself just by opening up to yourself and to the way that you view the world around you. And so, with that, we just want to thank you
Thank you
again,
guys. Yeah.
for joining us and tuning in and listening to us. And we hope that our message resonates with you and has touched you in some way.
Because a lot of you are just like us.
That's
We
right.
know it.
Just
There's
like
a lot of you
us.
that are just like us and vice versa.
That's right.
We're one and the same. We really are.
So thank you.
Thank you guys.
And we love you.
Definitely. We always love you guys. So on that note, we're gonna go ahead and call it a night. But we love you. And until the
Yes.
next episode, see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.
Love you guys.
Love you.